in that first frame, just in one frame. They're all the way across the eye. And then the body starts to go with it. Now we have this. This is an anticipation. The raising of the leg here is an anticipation showing us that he's getting ready to turn and go in that other direction. Let me change this. So the interesting thing about this, the line of action is incredibly clear, right? It's basically this beautiful S-curve that's happening. And he maintains that for quite some time, which helps the audience to read it. It's on twos, but so anyway, you get the idea that pose basically stays there for quite some time. But the anticipation part of this is that raising of the leg, and the interesting thing is, look what he gets away with. Pretty much because it's a cartoon, he can get away with this. But he's raising that leg, and the rest of the body doesn't move at all. I mean, sure, the arms are moving in, but by all rights, gravity should be taking over here, and he should be falling down, because his only means of support is that one foot. And it's way, way out here. Remember we talked about center of gravity? His center of gravity is way over here, and it's so far out from his base of support that he would definitely fall over if this wasn't a cartoon. Come on. Why am I not able to select this? So this all becomes part of the anticipation of him walking. And he has this really great follow-through. You know, that's the action. He did the anticipation. Now he's got the action of the turn. And he comes forward. And now it begins to take on a new line of action. One that's a little bit more belligerent. He's sort of thrusting his chest out while he's looking in that direction. You could also say that it's something somewhat like this. There's you know, depends which way you want to look at that particular pose. But then this is an anticipation, right? We call it a squash and a stretch, but it's also an anticipation because everything's coming down. At the same time the face is coming down, the arms are coming up. Now, what this tells us as viewers, when you get a compression like that, you know that you have to eventually come out of that and go into a thrust. So by seeing him squish down like this, in our minds, we're already imagining that he's going to come out of it. So that anticipation prepares us for this really great thrust forward. And it's not just that he's coming up and out of it, which he is, but he's also stamping this foot down, which is a nice emphasis. So you actually have, basically two things going on here. The foot was raising at the same time that the head was coming down and the arms were going up. So we've got the upper body doing its thing, and we've got the lower body doing its thing. But because of the way they've posed it and timed it, all parts of the body are working together to give you this really strong, forceful point that happens pretty much right here. And basically his whole body kind of turns into an arrow. And when you guys start getting into the more complex characters, something to look for is the way the lines flow along the outside silhouette of the body. So you can see that these arms here, they're not disjointed from each other. They flow right into each other through the head or through the neck. Okay, and that's really important. That helps keep a certain clarity in the pose. Let's see. Any questions on that? That all make sense? Now, this is the main action, the point, and then you have the settle, or the resolution, if you want to think of it that way, which basically comes out of that and into this, somewhere around here. So all this is part of the resolution of the point. And there's little things that are happening here, like if you track the tip of Merlin's hat, you can see that it's following basic overlap rules. It turns with the head, it drags, and then it changes direction as it goes up and over. Now you'll notice though, at no point is his hat perfectly straight. And this is what I pointed out to some of you guys before in your TOTS assignments. You would let that hair go perfectly straight. Well, look what he does. He keeps a tiny bend in that hat, and then it just drops over. Okay, so they're treating the hat the exactly same way we treat TOTS's hair. Now this is great too. So Merlin, if we look for another anticipation just within the face, we see Merlin's face completely squish up, right? Now this is telling us, it's preparing us for the fact that his face is going to open really wide in just a moment. Here's one of them. That's his first realization. Then he goes away, doesn't believe what he saw, and comes back again for the final realization, where his eyebrows are way up, his eyes are quite wide. That's even wider. And then he goes into a magical shrinking thing that he does. But you can see how each moment that's important, the storytelling poses are very, very clear, right? This is one of the storytelling poses. He's upset at Mim because she said she wouldn't disappear, and she did. He's starting to get upset. He hears something. He turns. Now we have him in basically this pose, this sort of squished down, his body squished down pose. Then that acted as an anticipation for this, where he turns and he finally sees her. But we get enough time to read this pose of him seeing her. His eyes never leave her. He's still looking at her. Like, sometimes when people animate this kind of thing, they might take the eyes off the subject. They might suddenly throw them onto the ground. But that actually disrupts where the audience is looking. So it's always good if you want somebody to focus on a certain point, and in this case